Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and today I'm going to do another wrap-up, this time of a motley assortment of things I've read since I got home from Worldcon. Mostly it's short books and comics, and I'll be talking about the translated works that I read for some readathons in separate videos. So I'm going to start off with some comics collections. I reread Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Andersen, which is her first Sarah's Scribbles collection. I've read the comics in this one so many times and it's so good. I feel like these comics are the inside of my brain. They're about introversion and anxiety and just some things that I think millennials really relate to. I love it. And then I went to the library and I got her third collection, which is Herding Cats. Once again, I'd already read the comics from this online when they were originally posted, but it was good to reread them all here in a collection. They made me laugh out loud as usual. And in this one, there's a whole section at the back, which is Andersen's advice to young creatives online, which I thought was quite an interesting read. It's not really, but kind of sort of addressing the fact that she's been the target of some online harassment campaigns and she's persevered despite that. And that definitely, I think, makes her relationship with the internet and her advice to young creatives today more complex. You have to acknowledge that there are good and bad things about being online now. So this was very funny to read, just as excellent as the previous collections, and I liked that inclusion at the end of her advice on that topic, so I look forward to getting my own copy of this eventually. Awkward segue to the next book as I got interrupted by a yapping dog. Not my dog, the dog outside. I hope you can't hear that. The next book is Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Saadawi, which is translated from Arabic by Jonathan Wright. This was honestly a very interesting reimagining or retelling of Frankenstein, but as like a commentary or analogy for what's happened in Baghdad in Iraq because of the American invasion. So it's set circa 2003-2004 during those events. And in rough terms, it's about this man, a junk dealer, who's known as a teller of tales and a massive liar, who's compelled, for some reason he's never able to really articulate, to piece together body parts of victims of terrorist bombings and then do something with this massive body he's created. But then it is animated by the soul of somebody else who's killed in a bombing, and it then begins seeking revenge or justice for the innocent victims it's made out of. So it's targeting criminals. But as the story proceeds, it becomes harder and harder to differentiate between the innocent and the criminals, the victims and the perpetrators. It's a very confusing situation. And the story is framed in some interesting ways. Like overall, the book is framed as a story or notes or like a journalistic piece that's been part of an investigation of this strange government agency that's looking into mysterious events like the Frankenstein monster crimes, trying to find out what is going on, what this creature is, and how to stop it. But it's also told in terms of like this rotating viewpoints of the people who live in the neighborhood where the man is created and what these various people know and think of the situation and their relationships with one another. So you have the junk dealer who's kind of the monster's father, and then you have Elishva, who is an old woman who's stayed in this neighborhood for years, for decades, waiting for her son to come home. He was actually killed in a war 20 years before, but she kind of becomes the monster's mother because she sees in him her son and she gives him the name of her son and everything. And then the other neighbors who know the junk dealer, who know Elishva, and are battling over property in the neighborhood and everything. And I love the way that this was told. I find something about the viewpoints and the framing to make the story really interesting. It's reminded me of some other books I've read that I also really liked that from. It's not exactly a mosaic novel or a tapestry novel because each person's section isn't a standalone story. I don't know if maybe it's more like the Rashomon effect or something like that, but just it lent more depth to the story. I felt like it was in a real neighborhood with real people trying to live their lives in a city that's falling into chaos, basically. So overall, I very much enjoyed this. I liked the writing, I liked the storytelling, I thought it was a good translation. And even though I'm not really fond of Frankenstein, I've read the original book and everything, I'm not super into Frankenstein, I found this particular reimagining of it to be a really, really good story and more interesting to me than the original was. Maybe I am damning myself. You're all gonna jump on me for not liking Frankenstein that much, but I did like this version of it. Next up, I read a nonfiction book called Life Without Plastic by Sinha and Chantal Plamondon. The authors are a couple who run an online store, also called Life Without Plastic, where they provide plastic-free alternative products for people who are looking to eliminate plastic from their lives. So this book is kind of like, in the first part, their argument for and the evidence they've collected for how toxic plastic is, that it's not good for you, your family, your children, your pets, animals, or the rest of the world. And in general, it's probably a good idea to avoid plastic products, especially the most toxic forms of it. And then the rest of the book is basically just a reference work. It's a list of resources, the different types of plastic and the alternatives to look for, and then where to look for other plastic-free products online. So it's a lot of really good information, but honestly, I think you could find all of this information and probably in a more up-to-date format, especially for the resources, if you just go online, go to their website, go to the other plastic-free or zero-waste websites and resources that are out there. I don't think that this being in a book really does anything new. So it was okay. I do find the plastic-free and zero-waste movements to be very interesting. I've kind of fallen down the rabbit hole of these movements online after reading more articles about banning single-use plastic. That's basically where I started learning about this. And I'm never going to be like full-on deplasticking my life or anything, but I do agree with the points being made here and that I want to do something about it. So I don't know. The book was okay. I would just go online if you want to know more. And the last thing I have to talk about in this wrap-up is Ms. Marvel Volume 9, Teenage Wasteland. This is written by G. Willow Wilson and the artist in this volume is Nico Leon. So I've been reading this for a while. Obviously I'm up to Volume 9 and I don't want to spoil previous story arcs and stuff. So I guess I will just say that I continue to really like the messages in this. I like the way it's written. I like the way that Kamala Khan, the main character, is written, and her identity as a Pakistani American teen in America, and how that really colors the story and the character's experience. This volume I appreciate a lot because it was kind of the conclusion, the resolution, or the cap for some ongoing story arcs about Kamala's struggle with her identity, with her place in her community, and kind of feeling rejected by the city that she lives in and that she's trying to protect. And some of her difficulties with friendships, like her best friend Bruno, who she had kind of a falling out with, and who he went off to Wakanda and now he's back now. So all these things sort of took a step to being fully resolved, and I liked that. I like when story arcs don't go on for too long. So I just really continued to enjoy the characters, the storytelling, the writing. The one thing that I felt a bit iffy on, which is why it only got 4 stars instead of 5, is it felt like some of these resolutions happened a bit too quickly, like the conversations happened very quickly and all of a sudden it was okay, and I thought it would actually take a bit more interaction, a bit more discussion to fully work through all of these things. But overall, I liked it and I've really enjoyed the series. And those are a bunch of things that I read in the second half of August. Do let me know if you've read any of these, and if you have any comments, leave them down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. And until then, bye.